Hi, I'm Lisa. Welcome back to Biblical Reality Check. In our previous video about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, we discovered how an ego consciousness gets created in a quantum mind that must exist in the physical world, and how the Bible is an exploration of how that ego, or lack thereof, manifests in all kinds of external environments. An ego consciousness exists on a continuum, as this chart illustrates. For the next several videos, we will be exploring examples of people in the Bible whose minds are on the continuum. From a person like Joshua, a man who is widely recognized for his strong faith in God, but whose thoughts and actions show a man who has been consumed by an ego consciousness, which is often the case, to a person like Daniel, who possesses a Christ-like consciousness and is the subject of this current video. Daniel's story is one that causes us to ask, what does it mean to stay aligned with truth when the entire system demands compromise? Like the allegory of Adam and Eve, Daniel's story should be applied to the mind because it shows how a human mind that is structurally aligned with the laws of energy is protected, no matter the harm that may come to a person's emotional, mental, and/or physical state in corrupt environments. A correct interpretation of this story will give truth-telling whistleblowers the information they need in deciding whether the consequences to their financial, emotional, and mental well-being for telling the truth are worth it as a result of blowing the whistle. To bring Daniel's story home, we will be juxtaposing it against a real-life whistleblower who paid the consequences in his personal life, but whose mind was protected so that he could go on to use it to fulfill a calling he may never have discovered otherwise. The Bible's book of Daniel begins with Daniel in exile. Taken from Jerusalem to Babylon, he's thrust into a culture of power, sorcery, and political manipulation. He rises to a position of power when he divines and interprets dreams for King Nebuchadnezzar that no one else is able to, all while maintaining dietary laws, daily prayer, and refusing to assimilate spiritually. His talent and integrity make him indispensable and threatening to some. However, when King Darius takes over after the death of Nebuchadnezzar, he appoints 120 satraps, who were high-ranking officials in ancient Near Eastern empires. He then appoints 3 administrators as their bosses, one of whom is Daniel. When the satraps get wind of the king's plans to promote Daniel, they are not happy and seek to find grounds to charge him with something illegal. However, they are unable to because Daniel is trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. So they do what ego-driven, corrupt political types with no scruples always do. They issue an edict that they know Daniel will violate. Thus, they decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being other than the king during the next 30 days will be thrown into the lion's den. When Daniel learns that the decree has been issued, he goes home and with his windows opened, prays 3 times a day, giving thanks to God. All the little administrative minions run to the king to tell on Daniel, and the king has no choice but to send Daniel to the lion's den, although that's the last thing he wants to do. After a sleepless night, the king checks on Daniel the next day, and the lions have not touched him. Then King Darius issues another decree, whereby everyone in his kingdom must worship the God of Daniel because he saves. Daniel prospered and the king sent the 120 satraps, along with their families, to the lion's den for falsely accusing Daniel. Now, transition to the present day. It's 1993, and Jeffrey Wigand is a biochemist employed by Brown and Williamson to improve tobacco products. He discovers that the company is enhancing nicotine addiction and lying about the health risks of cigarettes. When he refuses to remain silent, his employment is terminated and he is threatened and publicly smeared. Every thought, every choice, every action emits a frequency, not of sound, but of alignment. The behavior and thinking of both men give very strong examples of the universal laws of energy in alignment. Daniel tuned himself to truth, not survival. He consciously chose to pray in light of the decree, knowing that he would be sent to the lion's den for doing so. Wigand also vibrated at a frequency incompatible with deception. In environments built on manipulation, their frequencies were disruptive. Truth is not neutral. It divides, it exposes, it threatens those who hide in the shadows. Daniel prayed 3 times a day in violation of the decree. Wigand testified in court and provided internal documents which showed that the tobacco executives at the time were aware of nicotine enhancement and they lied about it. Daniel's resolve in light of punishment unsettled kingdoms. Wigand's testimony shook corporate empires. Daniel is thrown to the lions, not for wrongdoing, but for alignment. And Wigand is smeared, isolated, and terminated from his job for refusing to retreat from the truth. The universe compensates, but not always immediately. Those who expose rot are often devoured by it. The lions in Daniel's story are not just beasts, they are systems, colleagues, and silence that both men survived. Daniel is elevated after the den, and he is remembered for alignment, not escape. Wigand is vindicated in court, and the tobacco industry pays billions in settlements. Alignment with the law of action is not passive. It demands action. Daniel knelt and prayed daily despite the decree outlining it, and Wigand chose to testify despite gag orders in place. Both men chose principle over comfort. The lions are real, the betrayal is real, but so is the inner sanctuary. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The pain, the betrayal, the isolation, they become fuel. Daniel's name endures. Wigand's story educates. If you speak truth to power in a corrupt place, expect backlash, expect jealousy, expect betrayal. People will protect their paychecks, their pride, and their illusions. If you're facing corruption, you may lose your job, you may be smeared, you may be isolated, but I promise you, you will not be broken if you remain aligned. Daniel and Wigand did not escape harm, they transcended it. The universal laws are not promises of safety, they are invitations to alignment. Stay aligned. The den is not your end, it's your proving ground. In our next video, we will be exploring the polar opposite of the fully aligned mind of Daniel and dive into the thoughts and actions of Joshua, a military leader and former aide to Moses, who, like Adolf Hitler, professed that God was on his side, but whose mind was extremely misaligned with universal laws. Thanks for watching.